Hi there. Okay, so welcome back. I did a bay park for you just now. I did a drive-in bay park. I'm gonna now go through it with my PDI. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna teach her how I teach bay parking. So what I'm gonna do is effectively go through why I do things and the purpose behind it. So the first thing, the most important thing to remember when you're bay parking is why you're teaching it. Well, you're teaching it because they need to be able to bay park, they need to be able to drive a car, most effectively be in control of the vehicle. So today we're in a secluded car park, we're at the top end. When you are doing your bay park in heat and test centre, you'll be doing it down there. So you'll be doing it on the main car park. Now, when you're teaching a bay park, when you are driving into a bay, what you need to remember is the bay park that we're in, we are in like an area away from everybody. So we're at the top end of the car park. So when you come into a car park, when you're teaching your pupil, what you need to do, you need to risk assess. You need to see where you are in the car park. So as you're coming in, assess where you're taking your pupil. Are you taking them to the busy part of the car park or the quiet? I'll go through the schematics in terms of the drama behind that in another video. But what you need to remember when you're teaching them, first of all, you're responsible for them. You're responsible for that pupil sat there. So if they've never done a bay park before and you're taking them to the bottom end of this car park where the traffic goes in and out, well, they're not able to do it. You need to, first of all, make sure that they can do it. So you need a quiet area to teach them. And most importantly, when you're teaching driving bay park, you want to make sure that you understand it yourself. So in terms of the examiners, what they're looking for control, observation and accuracy. They're looking for control in terms of, look, they don't want you launching into the wall. They don't want you stopping and starting unnecessarily. They don't want you stalling unnecessarily. They also want you to be in control of the car. They want also to see your observations. So when you're teaching this, and let's say you're teaching it on a Sunday morning, well, it's going to be quiet. If they're going to do their test at 8:30, it's going to be busy. So you need to be able to make sure that they can drive a car in any conditions and in any car park. Now, some car parks are larger than others. This car park is a typical car park. It's a normal standard size. But the benefit of where I am right now is on one side of the car park. So on this side, on the left-hand side, there's no car parking spaces. They're all on the right. So naturally, it's like a bay park on the right is what you're going to end up doing. So it's important that you realise when you're doing a bay park, when you're teaching it, that you risk assess. So we've gone through your control in terms of your pupil. In terms of accuracy, you want to make sure that they land inside the bay. Now, going over the line and trying to correct it, well, you can correct it, but you failed your driving test. Why? I'll go on to that in a second. So what you know, make sure is that they're able, that you give them enough turn circle. So that's like the space they need to drive into the bay. The further you are from the bay, the easier it's going to become. So stay around 2 meters away from the bay, which is pretty reasonable, which is where you can just about see the end of the line reasonably from the opposite side of the car. Then, in terms of reference points, your reference points are localized to who's driving the car. Now, I learnt that about 8 years ago. I was teaching a pupil and he was 6'4". So do you know these stickers that you have in your car over here? They don't work. Bro, they don't work. Why don't they work? Because they're subjective to the person that's doing the bay park. So let's say, for example, your pupil is 5'6", which is like an average height for an average sort of young lady. So let's say she has a reference here. Well, if I'm 6'3", then my reference is going to be there. So don't rely on these little markers. I used to have them on my car. We're all guilty of doing that. I did that when I was, when I was in my first or second year of teaching. I've realised now it doesn't work. So what I do is I make my pupils establish their own reference point. Now mine is the door mirror with the line. However, for you it could be the line finishing in the door, near your feet, near the door handle, near the speakers, whatever. You give them their own sort of a reference point. You make them make their own. So what I do is I make them do a couple of bay parks and until they establish their own reference point. So what we're going to do now is, I've got my PDI in the car. I'm going to now ask her to do a bay park. Once she does the bay park, she'll establish her own reference point, and then effectively she keeps her own. And then she delegates that information to her up to her pupil. Sorry. So she will then say that to her pupil. Her pupil then will establish her own reference point. So if we look at the script, it's to drive into a bay. It either be on the left or on the right. Today we're doing a driving on the right. Then once they're finished, once they've parked in there, the pupil is then asked, are you finished? The pupil will then say if they're finished or not. Then they will be asked to reverse out of the bay. Imagine a car on either side. So like we saw earlier on, the young lady in the vehicle, she did a full lock before she was out of the bay. She'd hit a car. So you've got to make sure that when you're doing your full lock, you're almost at the end of the bay. So usually I line up like my door or my door mirror with the end of the line and then start doing my full lock to whichever side I want the rear of the vehicle going to. And that's exactly what I'll be teaching in this lesson today. So sit tight and let's see what happens. Okay, so what I want you to do, I want you to get yourself ready, move off when you're ready, and I want you to drive into a bay on the right. So it doesn't matter which bay you go into, you can choose your bay. Now, do you think the car's going to go into that bay? Then go back, start the maneuver again. So if you think that your car's not going to finish in that bay, then don't go any further. So now, line up with the bay after that one. It's easier. Yeah, okay, if you're happy. Yeah, carry on. So now get to your reference first and then wait there a second. Your reference point. Okay, so if you're going to land in that bay, what you want to do is you want to let people know what your intentions are. Yeah, you need to signal, yeah. And then make sure you do your effective observations. So look into both blind spots, and once it's safe, then start moving. Stop a second. Do you think you're going to finish in that bay? Now you need to make sure you're not going to go over these white lines. So right now, my pupil is looking out the window through a door mirror, and we can hear the car beeping. She's still in gear, and she's trying to look in her mirrors to see if she can establish the lines. Now I know she's inside her bay, and she now knows that she's inside the bay. So the examiner will now ask her, are you finished? And she just nodded at me. So then she'll go into park, she'll pull up the handbrake, she'll take her feet off the pedals, and now she's finished. Then what happens is the examiner will walk out the car. When he walks out the car, he will have a look to see if she's inside the bay. Now if we look there, we've got that. We've got it on this side, and it seems to be inside the bay. And now that's something I don't agree with. and that's when the car was beeping. Now, that could have been avoided. That could have been very easily avoided, and I'll discuss that with you in a second. All they had to do was make sure this door mirror is slightly further back than that pavement when they were in the car. So all we had to do there was make sure that that door mirror was slightly further back than that line, then the car doesn't overhang the bay and it doesn't scrub, the front bumper doesn't scrub on the floor. Now the problem you get is not with large cars like this, but with smaller cars, i.e. sports cars or Golfs or Focus or Ford Fiestas, etc. And what you find is the front bumper will rub. When it rubs, it'll end up snapping off. So it's very important that when you're doing your bay park, you establish your reference points and you don't damage your own kind of process. I hope this helps with forward bay park right. Thank you.